Hi everyone, we're Mimicker, here to introduce all kinds of knowledge, even the stuff we didn't know about. This channel strictly prohibits any form of violence, harassment, or hate speech. We are committed to maintaining a safe, respectful, and inclusive community. For any behavior that violates these guidelines, this channel reserves the right to remove comments, block accounts, and pursue legal action.
Right. And with that out of the way, I think we are ready to jump into today's topic.
Yeah, absolutely. So welcome to I Know You Don't Know. Today we are looking at a scenario that honestly feels like a Hollywood thriller, but it's entirely real.
Oh, totally. It's one of those things where truth is definitely stranger than fiction.
Exactly. I mean, what if the greatest threat to a modern president isn't, a highly trained foreign operative? What if it's just a beloved 31-year-old SAT tutor who legally booked a hotel room?
Which is such a terrifying concept when you really break it down.
It really is.
Yeah.
So I want you to completely immerse yourself in a very specific moment in time. The date is April 25th, 2026. You are standing inside the massive, glittering main ballroom of the Washington Hilton.
And just picture the sheer density of influence in this room, right?
Yeah.
It's got 2,600 of the most powerful people in America in one place.
Yeah, literally shoulder to shoulder. Top-tier journalists, cabinet members, Hollywood stars, politicians. They're all just drinking red wine, cutting into their steak appetizers, laughing.
Right. It's the White House Correspondents' Dinner, the one night a year designed to be this truce between the press and political power.
Exactly. The president is sitting at the absolute center of the main table. Everything is fine. And then, cutting through the hum of conversation, a shotgun blast just shatters the evening.
It completely ripped the night in half. I mean, to understand the gravity of that moment, you really have to look at the immediate physical reality of that ballroom.
Yeah, tell me about those first few seconds.
So at 8:40 p.m., that first shot rings out from a hallway just outside the metal detectors. Inside, the sheer panic is instantaneous.
I can't even imagine the chaos.
It was total chaos. We found this quote in the data we collect from Oz Perlman, a magician who is literally standing in the wings getting ready to perform on stage. He later said the very first thought that popped into his head was simply, "Oh no, are we about to die?"
Wow, just boom, instant survival mode. And while 2,000 guests are diving under banquet tables, the Secret Service response is, it's terrifyingly kinetic.
Oh, absolutely. They do not hesitate.
Right. Within about 10 seconds of that blast, agents absolutely swarm the main table. They form a literal human wall around the president.
And simultaneously, Vice President J.D. Vance is physically yanked out of his seat by his collar and dragged away.
Which looks crazy on video, but that wasn't panic, right? That was calculated protocol.
Exactly. The vice president was seated closest to the exit, so the data we collect notes that clearing him out first is standard operating procedure. Get the closest target out immediately.
Right. Clear the path. So it took the counter-assault team another 10 seconds to secure the flanks, and then 20 more seconds to push the president into the evacuation channel.
Yeah, in under a minute, a high society dinner transformed into a tactical battlefield. And miraculously, there was only one casualty, a bullet stopped by a law enforcement officer's tactical vest.
Thank goodness for that vest. But, the location of this near tragedy carries this deafening historical echo. This venue, the Washington Hilton, is infamous in security circles.
Yeah, they colloquially call it the Hinckley Hilton.
Right. Because 45 years prior, in March of 1981, a 25-year-old named John Hinckley Jr. shot President Ronald Reagan just outside a side door of this same building.
It's eerie, honestly. Same building, same target profile.
It is. And Reagan survived a bullet that stopped just 2.5 centimeters from his heart, strictly because the Secret Service managed to throw him into a car and evacuate him to a hospital in exactly 70 seconds.
And that 1981 shooting fundamentally changed how the Secret Service operates. I mean, it led to the creation of the Advanced Security Detail.
Which means what, exactly, for their day-to-day operations?
Well, before a president even steps foot in a city today, advanced teams spend days mapping out every window, establishing sniper lines, and timing the exact driving distance to the nearest trauma center.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second. If they map out every vulnerability so meticulously, how on earth do they justify hosting an event with 2,600 high-profile targets in an underground ballroom with limited exits?
It does seem counterintuitive.
Right. Especially in a hotel with a known history of structural vulnerability. I mean, it's like patching a leak in a submarine, only to realize years later that you parked it in the exact same minefield.
That is a great analogy. but it really comes down to the brutal math of Washington logistics.
What do you mean?
Well, the Hilton is one of the very few venues in D.C. massive enough to hold a sit-down dinner for that many people, and to host this event, the government didn't commandeer the entire building.
Oh, right. It was still open to the public.
Exactly. It remained a fully operational hotel. So while the ballroom itself was a fortress, there were hundreds of regular hotel guests freely using the elevators, the stairs, and the hallways.
Wow. So anyone could just be walking around.
Yeah. The threat on April 25th wasn't someone trying to breach the perimeter from the outside. The threat had already checked in. He was literally ordering room service on the 10th floor.
That is chilling.
Yep.
So the perimeter failed not because of a lapse in protocol, but because the attacker was perfectly designed to be invisible to that specific protocol.
Precisely. He was a ghost in the machine.
And the investigations from the data we collect paint a picture of an attacker that is just, well, he's so far removed from your typical movie villain.
Oh, completely.
His name was Cole Tomas Allen, 31 years old, a California native. He held a mechanical engineering degree from Caltech and was finishing a master's in computer science.
Not exactly the resume of a typical violent extremist.
Not at all. And for the past 6 years, he worked as a tutor at C2 Education, prepping kids for the SATs. Just a few months before the attack, he was named Teacher of the Month.
And his colleagues described him as quiet, focused, and well-liked by his students. I mean, in his spare time, he built robotics, coded indie games, and posted YouTube videos from his sunlit California garage.
He didn't have a criminal record.
None. He didn't fit the profile of a radicalized militiaman at all.
But then, at 8:30 p.m., just 10 minutes before he pulled the trigger, Allen emailed a 1,000-word manifesto to his family. The subject line was, "Cold Force-Friendly Federal Assassin."
Which is such a bizarre title.
Right. Here's where it gets really interesting. This reads less like a crazed terrorist plot and more like a twisted tech startup's mission statement.
Yeah, the data we collect highlights how methodical it was. He even included strict rules of engagement, explicitly stating he would shoot government officials systematically from the highest ranking down to the lowest.
But wait, didn't he carve out a weird exemption?
He did. He made a highly specific exemption for FBI Director Kash Patel.
That is so strange.
Very. And he also wrote that hotel staff, guests, and law enforcement were not his targets, though he would shoot if they got in his way.
And the way he justified his weapon choice, it's just pure, detached engineering logic. He intentionally chose a shotgun loaded with buckshot instead of heavy slugs.
Because buckshot has weaker wall penetration capabilities.
Exactly, which he claimed would minimize collateral damage. I mean, how does a quiet, beloved math tutor rationalize firing a shotgun into a crowded room as an act of, quote, friendliness?
Well, by falling into a psychological trap known as moral violence.
Moral violence, what is that?
It's when an attacker constructs a highly customized, completely self-righteous worldview. The phenomenon of moral violence means the attacker doesn't believe they're committing a crime at all.
Really? They think they're doing the right thing.
Yes, they genuinely think they are applying the emergency brakes to a runaway train of tyranny. In his manifesto, he used extremely charged political rhetoric, calling the president a traitor and a pedophile.
Right, echoing a lot of extreme internet dialogue.
Exactly. But he also cited broader government actions, mentioning bombed school children, executed fishermen, and abused refugees.
So he felt like he was a savior.
To his mind, when people are being oppressed, turning the other cheek isn't a Christian virtue, it's complicity. He engineered his morality the exact same way he engineered a robotics project.
Wow. Concluding that precision violence was the only logical public service he could provide.
Yeah, it's a terrifyingly rational irrationality.
So his psychological perimeter was breached long before he ever stepped foot in D.C. But regarding the physical perimeter, how does a guy with a shotgun, a handgun, and multiple knives get from a 10th floor hotel room all the way to the red carpet entrance of the president's dinner?
He simply exploited the routine. Because the Hilton was operating normally, the outer perimeter was practically non-existent.
Meaning anyone could just walk in.
Pretty much. Post-incident reporters demonstrated that you could walk into the main lobby just by flashing a screenshot on your phone. Furthermore, the hotel's elevator keycard security system was mysteriously disabled that night.
Wait, really? Disabled?
Yeah. But Allen didn't even risk the elevator. He walked out of his room, went down an internal stairwell, completely bypassed the heavily patrolled lobby zones, and popped out right next to the ballroom.
Because as a paying guest, he was already inside the fortress.
Exactly. The only security he actually encountered was the final metal detector right outside the ballroom doors, and he just violently crashed through it.
This is a pattern, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
We look at the data we collect on recent history. First, Thomas Crooks on a warehouse roof in Butler, Pennsylvania in July 2024.
Right.
Then, Ryan Wesley Ruth hiding in the bushes at the West Palm Beach Golf Course in September 2024. And now Cole Tomas Allen at the Hilton. It seems like the inner circle of agents isn't the problem.
No, the inner circle is elite.
Right. The failure keeps happening in the mundane public spaces right outside the security bubble.
What's fascinating here is you've hit on the exact crisis facing the Secret Service right now. The judgment of time and space on the outside is collapsing.
Collapsing how?
Well, in Butler, they didn't secure the roof just outside the event zone. In Florida, they treated the tree line of an active golf course as background noise. At the Hilton, the daily operations of a massive hotel were deemed an acceptable risk.
It's like they're blind to the everyday environment.
And historically, presidential security protocols are written in blood. I mean, Lincoln had absolutely no security detail at Ford's Theater. His box didn't even have a lock on the door.
That's just wild to think about today.
Totally. President Garfield was shot at a crowded train station in 1881, and he died weeks later simply because doctors were probing his wounds with unsterilized fingers.
Ugh, yeah, a completely avoidable tragedy by modern standards. And it wasn't until President McKinley was assassinated by a man hiding a gun in a medical bandage in 1901 that Congress finally tasked the Secret Service with presidential protection, right?
Exactly. And even then, it took the assassination of JFK in 1963 to finally end the era of open-top motorcades.
So every major leap in security protocol only happens after someone pays the ultimate price.
Which brings us to the modern paradox of protection. This was deeply debated in emergency meetings convened by White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles following the Hilton attack.
What did they conclude?
They hit a wall regarding the dilemma of marginal cost.
Marginal cost. Like a financial thing.
More like a logistical nightmare. If your adversary is a lone wolf who is patient, well-resourced, and doesn't care if they survive, how do you secure a public venue?
You can't, really.
Right. The only way to make an outer perimeter truly zero risk is to expand it endlessly. You shut down the entire hotel, the surrounding streets, the airspace.
But if you do that, the president can never again enter a building that is actually open to the public.
Exactly. You either accept extreme vulnerability or you accept total democratic isolation. The modern assassin has figured out how to exist comfortably inside the acceptable margins of a free society until the exact moment they strike.
If the physical perimeter is geometrically impossible to secure against an insider, we really have to figure out how these attackers are being created in the first place. I mean, how does a beloved SAT tutor radicalize without raising a single red flag to his friends or family?
The intelligence community actually recognized this shift in early 2026. The Department of Homeland Security issued stark warnings that lone wolf attackers, inspired by extreme ideologies, are the top domestic terror threat.
But the threshold for becoming a lone wolf has entirely collapsed, hasn't it?
Oh, completely. We aren't looking for a highly structured manifesto from a shadowy organization anymore.
Right, there's no militia compound in the woods to run satellite surveillance on. So what does this all mean for you, the listener? We aren't looking for an army. We're looking for a toxic, algorithm-fueled cocktail of grievances.
Exactly. Threat assessment researcher Reed Malloy developed a framework called TRAP-18 to identify violent threat indicators. According to the data we collect, the #1 indicator he points to is the personalization of ideology.
Meaning they make it their own unique brand of extremism.
Yes. Allen didn't copy and paste an ISIS manual. He used his elite engineering brain to craft his own distinct justification. He even used ChatGPT-style tools to refine and edit his manifesto's rhetoric for maximum impact.
That is so deeply unsettling.
This is what DHS calls hybrid extremism. In the past, an attacker usually needed cohesive group backing or extreme religious dogma. Today, the radicalization process is a personalized algorithm.
So it's just a mix of personal grievances combined with intense political rhetoric, all thrown into the digital echo chambers of platforms like Reddit, Discord, or Telegram.
And the most chilling reality is that early detection is fundamentally breaking down because of the gamification of political anger.
Okay, wait, how does that gamification actually push someone over the edge? How can law enforcement possibly detect a threat when the radicalization happens silently behind a screen?
Well, they almost can't. We are seeing the mainstreaming of violent political rhetoric. When political figures at the highest levels routinely describe their opponents as scum, traitors, or pedophiles, and accuse them of destroying the country, those words are captured by social media algorithms.
Because anger drives clicks.
Exactly. The algorithms recognize that anger drives engagement, so they amplify those specific words, repeating them endlessly on feeds. Eventually, that concentrated stream of existential threat lands on the screen of someone like Cole Tomas Allen.
Someone with a mechanical engineering degree, legal access to firearms, and a developing savior complex.
Yes. The ideological barrier to entry for domestic terrorism has vanished because the rhetoric of war is now just standard daily internet traffic.
It's important to step back here and just to be incredibly clear. Our goal isn't to validate either side's politics.
Right. We are just looking at the data.
Strictly the data. We are impartially reporting on how quickly this physical security failure mutated into a partisan weapon, because the smoke in the Hilton hallway hadn't even cleared before the event immediately shattered into competing political realities.
Oh, the speed of the spin was dizzying. Just 24 hours after surviving the attack, the president delivered an Oval Office speech.
And surprisingly, he pivoted heavily to a message of unity.
He did. He praised the fact that Republicans, Democrats, conservatives, and progressives were all in that ballroom together, united in their survival.
Which is a nice sentiment.
It was. He vowed to reschedule the dinner within 30 days, promising it would be bigger and better. To underscore this, he entirely scrapped his original planned speech, which was reportedly going to be a harsh, partisan roast of the White House Correspondents Association and comedian Jimmy Kimmel.
But while the Oval Office preached unity, the political machinery around him went into absolute overdrive.
It always does.
Yeah. On the right, figures like Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche and former Attorney General Pam Bondi used the chaos to demand the construction of a highly secure 1,000-person ballroom inside the White House itself.
They argued the president could no longer trust public venues.
Right. Meanwhile, Mad G influencers took to social media demanding that networks fired late-night hosts like Jimmy Kimmel, claiming their previous jokes had created an assassination atmosphere.
And on the left, the reaction was equally intense but focused entirely on conspiracy.
Oh, the false flags.
Yeah. Left-wing accounts began virally spreading the theory that the attack was a false flag operation. They pointed to Allen's manifesto being a little too perfect, the highly suspicious exemption he granted to FBI Director Kash Patel, and the convenient timing of an attack that maximized the president's political momentum right when he needed it.
Which, again, we are just reporting what was said. CNN's Daniel Dale did a rigorous fact check, dismantling these theories, detailing the verifiable reality of the threat.
But he had to acknowledge a terrifying metric. Within just 12 hours, these false flag conspiracies had already racked up tens of millions of views.
It's just wild. The smoke hadn't even cleared, and everyone had already cast Cole Tomas Allen in their own movie.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it shows how fractured we are. The right cast him as the inevitable result of left-wing extremism and media incitement.
The left cast him as a pawn in a deep state political theater.
And Allen himself tried to cast himself as the heroic, friendly federal assassin.
Which is just a delusion. None of those three scripts reflect the total nuanced reality.
But the tragedy of hybrid extremism is that they will all continue to be treated as undeniable truth by their respective believers.
And in the middle of all this partisan spin, something deeply profound was lost. I mean, the White House Correspondents' Dinner started in 1921 with 50 guys sitting around a piano.
Yeah, it was a very small, intimate thing.
And over a century, it evolved into an institution. It represented a 3-hour truce where absolute political power and the free press agreed to sit in the same room, break bread, and let each other live.
That immense symbolic value, the idea that enemies could still share a room, is exactly what made it an irresistible target.
So the investigations from the data we collect paint a reality that we all have to grapple with. We aren't talking about a breach by a highly trained foreign military unit.
No, not at all.
We are talking about a breach by an insider, a smart, quiet citizen who understood the structural vulnerabilities of the system perfectly and exploited them without doing a single law right up until the second he pulled the trigger.
The historian Heather Cox Richardson wrote a chilling summary on the night of the attack. She noted, "America's Civil War won't return as marching armies. It will return as a 31-year-old California teacher with a shotgun at a press dinner."
That is just, wow, it really puts it into perspective.
It does. The era of relying solely on massive metal detectors and sniper teams is fighting yesterday's war. The threat is no longer gathering at the gates. The threat is ordering room service down the hall.
which leaves you with a final lingering question to turn over in your mind. We like to think of the American presidency as an office of the people, existing in the public square, kissing babies and shaking hands.
It's the core of our democratic image.
Right. But when your adversary has meticulously read all of your security protocols, speaks your exact political language, and legally holds a hotel room key just a few doors down, is the era of the truly public presidency fundamentally over? Are we just waiting for the next vulnerability to be exploited by someone already standing inside the room?
It's definitely something we all need to think about.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode. If you enjoyed our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and turn on the notification bell.